Okay, this is Mr. Unlucky here, making a video by request for the forums on classicgoldwings.com to show how I've attached my C5 optical ignition system to my 1982 Honda Goldwing GL 1100 Interstate. This is Abigail. This is a work in progress here. Now, basically what happened here is that I am an idiot. And when I ordered my ignition system, I failed to mention that I was going to be swapping out the standard factory camshafts from the GL 1100 for 1979 GL 1000 camshafts, which are about that much longer. And the reason for that is because the GL 1100 camshaft does not have the threaded hole in the end for the bolt for the ignition system to mate onto, and basically I knew I was going to screw that up. So what I did instead was take an old starter motor that I had laying around, one that had gone bad, and remove the top end. You got two orbital gears and a ring gear in here. They come out pretty easily, the end sprocket off the end. But I took the top end off of this old starter motor and I sawed it off right there along that seam and removed the top bearing. You have to pull out the little snap rings in there to get the top bearing out. And there is another, that's the top bearing that came out of this one, and the smaller bearing on the inside, which I had to basically just pull out with a bolt, like a gear puller, and basically just hollowed out the top end of the starter and flipped it around to make a spacer for my ignition system, because I needed an additional 1 1/2 inches between the back of my C5 and the end of my cylinder head here. And this plate here, actually originally, this is part of the factory build of the GL 1100 cylinder head. This originally was flipped around the other way to hold a seal in on the end of the camshaft to keep oil from leaking out. What I've done is flip that around and drill a 1-inch hole in it to allow the camshaft to stick through, but also to have this plate holding the seal around the camshaft in place so that it can't slide out and cause an oil leak. I didn't want to have this directly pressing on the seal, but this is the basically the same part flipped around here. You can see the foot that was for mounting the starter has been repurposed into a guide for the control wires from the ignition. And I've got, this is actually a motor mount off an old Kawasaki that I've got in there, because these bolts being slightly off center, tightening this down was making the C5 want to actually cock to one side. So I got it precisely spaced on one side and then tightened it down slowly and torqued it while double checking my measurements back and forth on each side to make sure I maintained that 1 1/2 inch gap there on both sides. And get this open here. And I did need to add one additional washer on the bolt for the encoder wheel in the center of the ignition, just to get it moved out just a little bit further. And you will be able to see here that it is just about center of the available space here between the laser, the little pickup right there. And let me find the correct key here. And there you are. That is the super custom Mr. Unlucky is a complete idiot starter motor housing spacer for the C5 optical ignition system.